test that. Good to go. Guys, welcome to tonight's webinar. We're talking about the secret, really secrets, plural, to the private pilot FAA written test. And really, the entire reason for us doing this webinar is not only to help you prep for the written test, but specifically, the private pilot FAA written test has changed drastically in the past 30 days, 30 to 60 days, let's say. I mean, big time. Getting rid of questions, adding new questions. It's really caused us. We went last month, we went back into the studio. We worked 6 days a week in the studio, 10-hour days, refilming and reshooting a good part of our online ground school and all of our FAA written test prep boot camp. Because the FAA switched from PTS, Practical Test Standards, to ACS, Airman Certification Standards. And that's really why we're here tonight, to not only give you great tips on how to prepare for your upcoming private pilot written test, but also let you in on some of the changes. So let's get a few of those formalities out of the way, a little bit about how this works. I'm going to present. Feel free to ask your questions at any time. Now, you and I communicate using your handy dandy GoToWebinar control panel underneath the questions tab. If you're on an iPad, I want to say it's top right-hand corner. Click on the little question mark or tap on the little question mark there. You can type your answers in. Myself and my beautiful wife, Ashley, have a separate monitor with those questions coming up so we can see all of those. And Ashley will be typing back some responses to you while I'm over here rambling. So I can't hear you, I can't see you, so don't worry about that. However, if Ella starts crying or Pito and Magneto start barking over here, well, you're certainly going to hear it. This is being recorded. So if you want to, let's say, for example, you missed last night's webinar. Well, it literally just hit on YouTube about an hour ago. So go find that video on YouTube. It's also, I just posted it on our MzeroA.com Facebook page as well. Real quick, I know a lot of you guys know this, but just a little bit about myself. 9,000 hours. Most of them flight training hours, sitting in the right seat teaching a student. I was named AOPA's Outstanding Flight Instructor in 2014, and an appropriate bullet point here, bullet point number 3, we contributed, MzeroA.com contributed as a company to 25% of the written tests taken last year. We prepped 25% of the 24,000 written tests taken, and we were 10 points above average and everything else. And actually, let's talk about that here a little bit. Let's talk about that data before we really get into some of the secrets to the FAA, specifically the private pilot FAA written test. Here's the data that I want you to know, and we're going to build the foundation on here really quick. There were 25,460 written tests taken in 2014. Now, the average score was an 82%, and they had an 89% pass rate. Now, again, not one to brag, but our online ground school members and those who went through our FAA written test prep boot camp, those that were gold members, scored 10% higher, a 92% on average, compared to just the FAA general average of an 82%. Crazy, crazy stuff. We've really got a great system down for prepping you for the FAA written test. And that's why we're doing this webinar, to kind of share that with you. Now, here's what I want you to understand. You might say, oh, all I have to do is get better than a 70. My score doesn't really matter, but it matters so much. The score you earn on your FAA written directly reflects the difficulty of your check ride. Here's what I mean by that. If you march in to your FAA check ride with a 70%, the FAA bare minimum, the examiner's going to look at that and go, oh, so you got a 70% on your written. Do you think they're going to go easier or harder on you for your check ride? They're going to look at that and go, either this person didn't care to study, maybe this person's just a bad test taker, or maybe this person doesn't know a whole lot, and I'm going to try to dig some holes in there and see how much they really know. Whereas if you walk in like our online ground school members do with an average of a 92, in fact, of that batch, I want to say we had 5 or 6 100s, which boggles my mind. I didn't even get hundreds on my written tests. Boggles my mind to get a perfect score. You march in with a score like that on your written test, how do you think your check ride is going to go? That examiner is going to look at that and go, wow, he or she really studied. He or she really knows their stuff. This is impressive. The score you get on your check ride is going to directly impact the difficulty of your check ride. The score you get on your written test is going to directly reflect the difficulty of that check ride. So let's start out here. Let's start with some secrets. I've got 4 of them here, and then I'm going to put you guys kind of through a little bit of a written test quiz. Secret number 1, and this is a big one, because we're taught to memorize. Please do not go into your written test trying to memorize everything. You don't learn things by just memorizing ABC, or when you see this question, it's this answer, that sort of stuff. In fact, this is how I was taught to prep for the written test, which is exactly the opposite of what I want you to do. Actually, it wasn't even my instructor. A friend told me this, said, Jason, go buy the test prep book, go in and just highlight the correct answers. So when you're reading through the test prep book, you only see the correct answers. And I did it, and I passed, not with a score I was exactly proud of, because they only taught me to see the question, see the correct answer. That's it. It's rote memorization. It is learning something on the most basic level. It is like reading the headlines in the newspaper than trying to have an articulate conversation with someone who really knows the subject you're discussing. It's rote memorization. See, what we teach is to learn to apply it to real world situations. And that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to work you through some questions, and I'm going to give you real world applicability to them. I don't want you to just memorize. That's not how you prep for the FAA written test. And they kind of set you up that way, unfortunately, with a multiple choice type test. I'm not crazy about the written test. It's one of those things we certainly have to do. I wish everybody prepped like the way I'm about to teach you, which is applying it to real world situations, because here's the thing. How you prep for the written test and how you prep for the check ride are 2 totally different things. To take it a step further, sometimes what happens in the book, let's call that the written test, and what happens in the real world are 2 different things. Any of you who are, in the legal field, the medical, any profession, you can probably relate to that. You had to take your real estate, you had to take some silly tests that really don't translate very well to the real world. Well, unfortunately, the written test is like that. And that's why I'm here tonight to help you make it more applicable. There's a reason we're scoring 10 points higher than the FAA average. So secret number 1 is to not memorize. Apply them to real world situations, and here's an example. Here's a question for you. Which of the following documents is not required on the aircraft? Is it A, the airworthiness certificate, B, the weight and balance, or C, the federal aviation regulations? Which is not required. And again, this is interactive. You can type in A, B, or C. I want to know your response on your handy dandy GoToWebinar control panel. You can just type in a letter there for me. David E, Denton, Keith M, James B, Anthony, Bubba, Brian, Marcio, ECAT, Jay, absolutely, Tony, Aaron, yeah, you guys are all spot on. Nobody was fooled by this one, thank goodness. And this can be a trick question sometimes, because the question is, which is not required? Well, how would I know what's not required? Well, I need to understand, by the way, the answer is C, for those of you that didn't know. I need to understand what are my required aircraft documents. You see, if I just went through and I said, not required, C, federal aviation regulations, great. But I'm just learning what's not required. I'm not learning what's also required, which is my ARROW acronym, ARROW, my required aircraft documents. In my aircraft at all times, I'm to have my A in my acronym, Airworthiness Certificate. My R in my acronym, my registration certificate. My other R for international flights only is a radio certificate, only if I want to fly international, if I want to go to Canada, Bahamas, Mexico, that sort of stuff. O is my operator's manual, not a POH. That's a pilot's operating handbook. My operator's manual or owner's manual that literally comes with the airplane when it's manufactured. And W is my weight and balance, not the weight and balance I calculate. This is the weight and balance that comes with the aircraft and is redone anytime you have avionics, repainted, that sort of stuff with the aircraft. You see, when I understand what's required, I can then answer the question of what's not required. Whereas if I just went into memorization mode, I would say, okay, the FARs. I don't need to bring a FAR in with me when I fly. Okay, good. I understand that now with that. By the way, James B asked a good question. He said, is the radio certificate for the radio hardware or the human operator? Great question. That is specific to the aircraft. That is just making sure your radios are up to international IACO standards, is all that is doing. Very specific to the aircraft, not specific to you. All you're required to be, James, is English proficient. So not getting on a tangent with that. Required aircraft documents. See, if I understand that, I can answer that question. Let me let you in on something that I'm not crazy about. I am personally not a fan of what I call weekend crash courses. I don't like using the word crash course in anything aviation. But I'm not a fan of this. What I mean is you've probably seen these courses. Maybe some of you have done them and had success. I get it. Where it's, come to this hotel for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and on the last day you take your written test and you pass. All they are preparing you to do is one thing: pass that written test. That's it. They are there they teach you the little things like when you see this question, this is the answer. And trust me, they will get you to pass the written test without a doubt. But having done those courses, having had friends do those courses, they walk away with a written test pass certificate in their hand, but without the knowledge they need to be a safe real-world pilot and continue on to their check ride. Now, the only exception to this is if this is the only way you're going to pass your written, then by all means. I have some friends that are just CEOs of major companies, and there is just no way they're setting the time aside. Unfortunately, time and money are the two biggest issues in aviation, right? They've got plenty of money. They just don't have the time. So they go to these little weekend concentrated crash courses that I call, and they knock out the written test. And then they cram for a check ride and somehow miraculously pass. I'm certainly not advocating that method. But if it's the only way you're going to get a written test passed, then I guess go for it. But I am personally not crazy about these. Yeah, like Tony said, it's just cramming. That's all you're doing is you cram for 2 days and then you take the test on the third day. And they're literally just prepping you to pass a test. That's it. They're not prepping you to be a safe real-world pilot or pass that check ride. That's my beef. That's my issue I have with that. I wanted to get that out there quick. I can see that being a question with that sort of stuff here. Let's see. Secret number 2. Get rid of the bogus answer. There will be in your ABC, your 3 options, there will always be some sort of bogus answer. On our last question, it actually was the answer because the question was which is not required. Well, we knew what was required, so we knew it was flying with the FAR aim. That's the bogus answer there. In most cases, when it's not a double negative like that, I want to get rid of the bogus answer. I'm going to show you some questions here in a bit, and you should be able to spot in each one the bogus answer. And then from there, it's a 50-50 shot if I don't know. But you should have a good educated guess. But in every single one of the FAA questions, there's always one that you can throw out if you're in a pickle and you don't quite understand what they're asking there. Get rid of the bogus answer. Secret number 3 is this. I shared this last night on the webinar. It's to get the written test scheduled and then commit to a studying plan of action. The best way to get your written test done is to schedule it. If you, and again, I'll use this as an example. Today is the 29th. Call up your local FBO or your wherever your testing center is and say, hey, I'd like to schedule for August 29th. Get that scheduled and don't change it. That date is going to come. It's going to force you to study. Get it scheduled and then commit to a studying plan of action. For example, our FAA written test prep boot camp for our gold members is broken up into 12 lessons. They're about 30-minute long videos, and then there's a quiz at the end that takes about another 30 minutes. It'll take you about an hour to complete. If you can commit an hour a night and it's 12 lessons, you can knock it out in 12 days. And then maybe have some time to take some practice tests. You could seriously schedule 2 weeks out if you can commit to that. If a month is more feasible for you, you do a module every other night with some practice tests in between. Here's the thing. Get it scheduled and commit to a studying plan of action. That's what I want you guys to do. The written test is the monkey on your back. I promise you. The written test will loom over you. It will hold you back in your flight training if you don't get it done early. You can get your medical, you can be solo doing your cross countries, you think you're ready for your check ride, but if you're like me, and that was me, I thought I was ready for my check ride, but I wasn't. Because my instructor said, listen, Jason, you've got to do your written test first. And like I shared with you, how you prep and prepare for the written test is night and day different than how you prepare for the check ride. It's totally different. So trust me on this. Get the written test scheduled, commit to a studying plan of action, and get it done. Secret number 4 is this, then I'm going to get to some actual FAA written test questions. Be prepared for the 5, even to 10% test day drop. Here's what I mean. I see it all the time. Students really doing well, getting 85s, 90s on their, let's say they're getting just straight 90s on their practice tests. And on the actual FAA written test, they end up getting like an 85. And they're kind of bummed. They're thinking, man, I was getting 90s on my practice test. What happened? That is just the test day drop. Because what happens on test day, you're a little bit nervous, you're a little bit anxious, and what happens most of the time is you second guess yourself. If you've done any written test before, you found this before, I think it's B, but I could also make an argument for A. I really don't know. And here's my best advice for that. Go with your first choice. Anytime I've ever second guessed myself and changed my answer, I ended up being wrong. Go with your gut instinct on the first one. It popped into your brain first, after all, for a reason. If you've done the proper studying, you should be A-okay with that. But be prepared for the 5 to even 10% test day drop. I say that because I have individuals that will do practice tests with us. They'll be scoring in the 75s, and they say, hey, Jason, I need an endorsement. And I say, no way am I sending you an endorsement. I think I hurt their feelings sometimes, but I'm not sending anybody an endorsement that's scoring 75s on practice tests because I know about the 5 to 10% test day drop and the margins are just too tight. In fact, in our online ground school, I make students get an 85% on at least one practice test before I'll issue them an endorsement. Now, of course, I hold my students to a much higher standard. My online ground school students, I hold them to a very high standard, compared to other programs and anybody else. But that's just me because I want you to do your absolute best. I want you to absolutely crush it on the written test. So when you show up for that check ride, well, you walk in with a feather in your cap because you got such a great score on your written test. Now, let's go in and let's share some actual written test questions. Again, inside our online ground school, we have the entire database of these questions. There's 767 of them, I want to say. And we have the newest ones as well. We got rid of the old, in with the new. I believe as of right now, this recording, we're the only one to have that written test up to ACS Airman Certification Standard. So let's talk about this real quick here. I'm going to show you the question. We'll talk about the answer, and then I'll show you why we have to apply it to real world type scenarios. And I'll show you kind of how I teach the FAA written test here a little bit. So let's review some of these practice questions. Again, these are actual FAA written questions straight from the database. Very good chance you're going to see some of these on your written test when you take it. An airplane and an airship are converging. If the airship is left of the airplane's position, which aircraft has the right of way? Is it A, the airship, B, the airplane, or C, each pilot should alter their course to the right? I'm going to grab a sip of tea, and I want you guys to type your answers in, A, B, or C. Just let me know while I grab a sip of tea here real quick. Don't mind my slurping here. Some great answers from Keith, John, Brian, Aaron, Kevin, Denton, Mara, David W, Marcio, Ralph, Sean, James. And again, if you listen, there's some incorrect answers. No big deal. Mark, great answer. This is why we're going over this sort of stuff. And if you don't know, it's no big deal. You don't have to feel obligated to put an answer in here. This is what we're here for, to help you guys with this sort of stuff, to make it real world applicable. So let's dissect this question a little bit more. An airplane and an airship are converging. If the airship is left of the airplane's position, which aircraft has the right of way? See, this is really a trick question, because all they had to tell me was airplane and airship converging, who has the right of way. The fact that they put the airship is left of the airplane means absolutely nothing. And I'll share with you why here in a second. The answer to this is the airship has the right of way. Those of you who put C as the answer, each pilot should alter their course to the right, you were deceived by that phrase of the airship is left of the, because you're thinking, oh, we alter our course to the right on a convergence like that, or the aircraft to the right has the right of way. They're trying to trick you with that. That only applies to aircraft in the same category. Airplane, rotorcraft, airship, that's the same category. Now, here's why. It's all about maneuverability. See, if you knew that if it's all about maneuverability, over here would be a helicopter, then an airplane like we fly has the right of way over a helicopter, an airship has the right of way over an airplane and a helicopter, a glider has the right of way over an airship, an airplane, and then again a helicopter will be over here. A hot air balloon has the right of way over a glider, then over an airship, and over an airplane, and over a helicopter. Now, an asterisk down here, an aircraft in distress, an aircraft having an emergency, has the right of way over all other aircraft in this case. But if you realized it was all about maneuverability, that an airplane and an airship or a blimp, whatever you want to call it, are two different categories of aircraft, of flying machines. So then it just came down to maneuverability. Who is less maneuverable? The aircraft that has the least amount of maneuverability has the right of way in that case. Now, if it was a Cessna 150 and a 172 converging, then I would alter my course. Each pilot would alter their course to the right because they're both aircraft. Maneuverability only changes based on big picture categories like this. See, when you understand that and you look back at that question, you go, oh, okay, that makes sense now. When you understand right-of-way rules. See, that's why in the online ground school, I don't just teach you to, oh, it's A when you see this one. I want to sit down and teach you how the right-of-way rules work. And when you know how the right-of-way rules work, there's about 15 questions out of the 700 some odd questions in there that you'll get right because you understand right-of-way rules. I teach you one concept like right-of-way rules, you're good for 15 questions. Whereas if I just teach you to memorize this verbiage here, you're only good for one question. You see what I mean there? Let's continue moving forward here. How about this one? Every process of weather is accompanied by or the result of, is it A, movement of air, B, a pressure differential, or is it C, a heat exchange? I'm going to grab another sip of tea while you guys start to type some of those answers in here. Let's see. Correct answers from James B, Ron D, Marcio, Keith S, Yasir, David W, Kevin W, Chris F. I have right answers. I didn't say your name and you typed in an answer. It's because I don't have a correct answer for me. But again, no big deal. I always say this with my online ground school members when we do mock check rides like this. I say, wouldn't you rather getting the question wrong here with me than on test day? Especially on the private pilot written when, one question is worth about 1.5%. A little bit more than that, actually, if you do the math on it, because it's only 60 questions. So a little bit higher than that, actually. It's important to get each and every one right in that case. Kevin C., ECAT, you are correct with that. Here's the answer. Every process of weather is accompanied by or the result of a heat exchange. Now, where was the bogus answer? What can we throw out here? Well, I can throw out the movement of air because then I argue, okay, what moves air? All right, great. Well, what moves air? Pressure differential moves air. But what causes a pressure differential? Well, a heat exchange causes a pressure differential. See, it's really stacked up here. We get a heat exchange, we get a difference in pressure, and that difference in pressure moves the air. It's literally an order like that. Now, let me show you that process, and let me teach you that process, and let's use something classic like a cold front. You see, when you get a cold front, it's a great time because we're in the summer months right now. We get some cold air, and trust me, in Florida, it's not cold air, it's just coolish air by like 5 degrees cooler. You get a cold front that pushes through. You get this cold, dense air, and let's say this cold, dense air pushes through a place like Florida. Florida is warm. It is humid. Really, anywhere in the United States right now is warm and humid, it seems like. So this cold air comes through and meets this warm air. There's our heat exchange. Now, we take that warm, moist air and we throw it aloft. We start to get our pressure differentials. We start to get our movements of air. But it all started with a heat exchange. We had to get rid of this heat. We had to force this heat aloft somehow. And how that happened was through this cold air passing through. It's another way to put it is through a temperature inversion. What starts all weather is a heat exchange. We've got to get rid of that heat somehow. It could be as simple as just radiating that heat off. Think of 4 o'clock and you're leaving the shopping mall or you're leaving Walmart and the sun has been baking that pavement all day. You feel the heat exchange, don't you, coming off the pavement? That's radiating that heat on up. That kind of gets that process going. A cold front does the exact same thing, pushing on through and forcing that warm, moist air up in a loft. The start of all weather is a heat exchange. Then it causes the pressure differential. Then it causes the movement of air. And that's how our thunderstorms begin to start. But it all starts with a heat exchange. Okay? Again, geez, I teach you how a cold front works. And now you not only know a heat exchange, but you know about a temperature inversion. You know about cumulonimbus clouds. You learn about the anvil cloud. You learn about quarter-size hail. And I teach you all this stuff now about thunderstorms on this one slide. I kid you not. If I really went into it, I could prep you for 40 to 50 questions for the FAA written test and give you all the buzzwords and everything else you know by just giving you the example of a cold front moving into warmer air. It's why we get our summertime thunderstorms are so nasty. It's why the Midwest is so well known for Tornado Alley and having tornadoes, because the cold fronts come down from Canada and they end up really building. And by the time they hit the Midwest, there's squall lines and they're ready to rock and roll, and they hit that warm, moist air out in the Midwest. And we get our tornadoes, is what happens there. But it all starts with that heat exchange. We're doing really great time-wise, guys. Let's look at another one here, and then I'll kind of open it up for Q&A. What are the wind conditions at K Inc? What are the wind conditions at K Inc? And literally, this is the actual FAA written test image that you're going to see. And this is the exact question. They're going to throw all these METARs at you. They're just going to say, what are the conditions? What are the wind conditions at K Inc? Are they A, calm, B, 110 at 12 knots, gusting to 18 knots, or C, 111 degrees at 2 knots, gust to 18 knots? I'm going to grab another sip of tea here while you guys work on your answers. And again, this, of course, assumes you already know how to properly read a METAR. Great answers. Ralph, Keith, Denton, Sean, Marcio, Aaron K, David W, Aaron B, Stephen D, Marah, Brian H, James B, Richard, Dennis, Keith, Kevin, Richard C, Yasir, John. Yeah, absolutely. You guys are spot on. Spot on with this sort of stuff. Absolutely. The answer, and I'll share it with you here real quick. The answer is B. 110 at 12 knots, gust to 18 knots. Why and how do I know that? First and foremost, let's throw out the bogus answer. Really, there's kind of two bogus answers. But the most bogus one is C, because METARs, you would learn if we taught METARs in their entirety like we do in the online ground school. METARs don't give you degrees this exact. It would just say, at 110 degrees. It wouldn't say at 111 degrees. Plus, METARs don't give you winds less than, they don't give you them into the 2 knots. This would be considered light and variable. They don't start until the 3 knot mark, actually. So when you look, and first off, we have to find K Inc. Great, it's the first one here. I read through my time, the 12th at 1845 Zulu. Winds 110 at 12, gust 18 knots. And I see that there, and I go, okay, great. 110 at 12 knots, gusting to 18 knots. The other one I could throw out is calm, because if I look at even if I didn't know which airport, if I look at all the airports, the winds aren't calm at any of the airports. How is calm shown? Calm is shown by zeros across the board. It's 5 zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's what calm winds looks like. Zeros across the board. Light and variable is not calm. It's light and variable. And you see that as VRB with some zeros there. So really, even if I couldn't read a METAR and kind of had a half an idea of a METAR, I could figure this one out here by getting rid of some of the bogus answers. But you see, if we sit down and I show you the actual FAA METARs, and then we pull up some real METARs in your area, and I teach you how to read METARs, how to read TAFs, how to read and report PIREPs, pilot reports, and we fully go through that and understand that, textual weather like this, METARs, TAFs, PIREPs, area forecasts, I kid you not, makes up about 60 to 70 questions on the FAA written test. So if you're looking at this going, this is a foreign language, I have no clue what they're talking about, you've got some homework now. This was a fairly easy one. If you're looking at some of this other stuff going, SCT 007, what What does that even mean? Um, if you're looking at some of this, you don't understand what it means, you know what your homework is. Because seriously, I mean, 70 questions at least are made up on textual weather, METARs, TAFs, PIREPs, area forecasts, winds aloft. All that sort of stuff is so prominent. I know it's like learning another language, but guys, we have to know it. We can't keep cheating and translating TAFs and translating METARs. We've got to learn them in their raw format here. If you learn how to read METARs and TAFs, you're going to be really set up in the future in regards to the written test. So this kind of let you in inside, obviously some great tips, but inside on how to properly prep and prepare for the written test. And I want to be able to help you guys do that. So just like I chatted about last night, guys, during this 3-part webinar series, if you sign up to become an online ground school member, groundschoolacademy.com, become a bronze, silver, or gold member, I am going to give you all 8 of my flight training books and audiobooks that I've written completely free as a bonus. Pass your private pilot check ride, ebook and audiobook. I sat in on hundreds of check rides, wrote down every single question they asked. If it came up multiple times, I flag it as a popular check ride question. It's on audiobook as well. I read the question, pause for a second, let you think about the answer in your head, and then give you that proper answer. So on your long commute to work, while you're on the treadmill, while you're walking the dog, whatever your time is, you can be immersed in learning. You also get its companion book, Pass Your Instrument Pilot Check, right? Because who doesn't want to become an instrument pilot one day? The FAR aim in plain English. I took the 2,000-page FAR aim, broke it down to about 120 pages, took that legal lawyer speak, show it to you and say, here's what it really means. Here's why it pertains to you as a private pilot. Here's what you need to say on your check ride to pass in regards to the FAR aim. The Secret to Perfect Landings, In-Flight Emergencies, both have a ton of great videos inside of them. Aviation acronyms, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, the Airplane Flying Handbook. These two, with the good grace of the FAA, we were able to reproduce and rewrite and update on the FAA's behalf. Very honored and blessed to be able to say that. Gold members, if you sign up on groundschoolacademy.com and become a gold member during this webinar series, this 3-part webinar series, it's $147 a month. If you like these webinars, I do these webinars every Monday night. I teach on topics like crosswind landings, hypoxia, airspace. About a month ago, I did an entire webinar just on Class E and Class G airspace because it's so technical. And then we do mock check rides as well, where I quiz you as a ground school member. We all work together and kind of do a check ride together, actual FAA check ride questions. Related to what we're talking about tonight, you get our FAA written test prep boot camp, what I was just telling you about. We spent a month reshooting and re-entering all 700 questions into our new database, plus you get the endorsement. You don't even have to have a CFI. I can be your virtual CFI on the internet for ground school, and I can actually get you an endorsement that you can print out and take to any testing center. It'll be honored anywhere in the United States, and take your written test before you even have a flight school or a flight instructor picked out. Then, of course, as a gold member, you get our Pass Your Check Ride or I'll Pay For It guarantee. Last year, out of thousands of check rides, I only had to redeem that offer twice. I'm talking thousands upon thousands of check rides. We've really got a great knack for this sort of stuff, guys. groundschoolacademy.com. Click enroll or click join today. Now, this bonus offer where you get all the books, access to the written test prep boot camp as a gold member, all that sort of stuff, expires tomorrow at 11:59 Eastern Time. I'm doing one more webinar tomorrow. I'm sharing my story about my solo and how you can solo sooner with some landing tips and some great advice. After that webinar, I'll do this same announcement, and then basically at midnight that night, midnight tomorrow, this offer ends. Once you become a member, maybe you signed up last night, and I thank you, and I'm very blessed and thankful for you doing that. Once you're logged in, go to groundschoolacademy.com/books to start that download process and download all 8 of those books. It's a very big file. It's a zip file. So give it some time, download it to your computer, then unzip it from there and take it to your iPad, phone, Kindle, whatever device you're going to read that on. Groundschoolacademy.com. Click enroll or click join today. No obligations. It is a monthly fee, but you can sign up for 1 month. You can sign up for 12 months. It really doesn't matter. It's month to month. When you're ready to cancel, you can email my lovely wife, Ashley, and we are here for you guys. So listen, guys, it is your time now. Ask your questions. Anything related to the FAA written test, anything flying, if it is related to airplanes, I am more than happy to chat about it. Again, you and I communicate using your handy dandy GoToWebinar control panel underneath the questions tab. Now is your chance to ask those questions. So grab a sip of tea here, and I'll go ahead and start taking those questions. James B said, is the endorsement only available to gold members? So James, yes, in a way. So, because gold members get access to the FAA written test prep boot camp. Now, James B, you could be a bronze member and then also go purchase the boot camp separately, but the boot camp's, basically $100 on its own. It would behoove you to just become a gold member and get it all included, plus get the webinars and everything else with that. So that is that. Let's see. Hey, Ralph. Ralph said, do you recommend that we read the Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge and Airplane Flying Handbook in addition to taking your ground school and written test course? Or if we do well in the courses, is reading these publications optional? So, Ralph, here's my thing. I'm not here to be a high-pressure salesman. I am here to deliver value to you, my friend. If our course is a fit for you, absolutely. So here's my question to you, Ralph. If you learn best by reading and taking notes and that sort of stuff, and you can be diligent with it, by all means go that route. However, Ralph, if you enjoy my teaching style, again, I do all the videos, I do all the webinars. I know I ramble sometimes. I know I'm not the most eloquent. I say things like a lot. If that annoys the heck out of you, I wouldn't become a ground school member, because you're going to be listening to me for hundreds of hours inside of there. If you like my teaching style and you feel that I've taught you a lot, geez, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The ground school is going to be like flipping on the light switch for you, my friend, because it's like that for so many. I see we have many ground school members on here as well, and hopefully they've had those same kind of experiences. So that's my opinion, Ralph. You know how you learn best. If you learn well with videos, specifically our videos and our webinars, by all means sign up. Even just check it out for a month. It's $147. It's the price of a flight hour, basically. Just check it out in that regard. But if you think, listen, if books are your thing, you like to hold a physical paperback book and make notes in it, and that's your learning style, man, go for it. I'm not here to be a high pressure salesman. I'm here to do what's best for you, which ultimately is what's best for aviation. And that's my professional opinion with that. Let's see. Luke M said, I know this may be be early to ask, but I just started my ground school literally Monday from King Schools. Sorry, Jason, in quotation marks. Hey, listen, John and Martha King are very good friends of ours. No skin off my back. Again, I'm not here to be a high pressure salesman. What should I do about the test changing, as I'm not planning to start my flight train until next summer? So here's the bummer. And I don't like to talk bad about competition. In fact, I don't really believe in competition. The only person I compete against is myself each and every morning. I'm not competing against anybody but myself. And how can we better ourselves? The problem with, let's say a DVD course, so we don't name names or anything, is it's out of date as of 60 days ago, because so much has changed. Now, that being said, Luke, you're still going to learn a lot from it. Absolutely. And go through it. But take some of it with a grain of salt because a lot of things have changed. Now, Luke, let's say you want to start flight training next summer, a year from now. Go through the King course, build a strong foundation, and then think of us a year from now, Luke. And you say, listen, I'm getting ready to start my training. I want to knock out that written test. I'm going to go jump in Jason's ground school for a month, 2 months to bridge the gaps, to build up my foundation again. And, maybe figure out some discrepancies between the two courses as well. That's my professional opinion. Again, John Martha King, I literally 2-3 days ago had dinner with them. They're very, very nice people. We don't look at each other as competition. We look at it, we're both just trying to grow aviation together. Absolutely. Aaron K said, what items should I bring to the written test? So it's really what items can you bring to the written test? You can bring a manual E6B. You can also bring an electronic E6B. Make sure it's approved. There's only 2 that are approved. You can bring a basic 4-function calculator. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Those are your 4 functions. It's hard to find a calculator that doesn't do a lot nowadays. You cannot bring your phone in with you. Most places have a little locker where they make you leave your phone, your tablet, that sort of stuff. You can bring your plotter in with you, but it's very, very basic, my friend. So when prepping, really, don't even use the calculator on your phone. Use the calculator you're going to use on test day. And trust me, it's hard to find a 4-function calculator. You probably have to go online on Amazon to find one because every calculator, it's all about how many features and cool things can you do now. And they will look at that sort of stuff and make sure. So save the documentation of the calculator. It says this only does this. Okay, trust me on this one. No scientific calculators, that sort of stuff. Anthony said, where do you get the radio certificate if I want to fly to Canada? So again, Anthony, great question. The radio certificate is for your aircraft, and you would get it from your avionics shop. The avionics shop, geez, they wouldn't even have to do much testing. They would just make sure they're modern radios and approve you for that radio certificate. That radio certificate does not expire. Once you have it, you have it. So make sure your airplane doesn't already have it or has had it in the past. Marcio asked, where do you get info on sites for testing? So there's 2 places you can go. The first is CATS, C-A-T-S, computerized, something with an A, testing. I don't really know what it all stands for. But if you go to CATS, C-A-T-S testing centers, Google that, or Laser Grade is their competitor. CATS and Laser Grade. Those are the 2 that have the FAA written tests. And you'd be surprised at the testing centers. A lot of times your community college may have it. Of course, your local FBO and airport usually is going to have it. But yeah, a lot of times your community college or high schools will have a testing center as well because it's got to be a proctored exam. You're literally watched on camera. CATS and Laser Grade. Look those 2 up. If you're an AOPA member and I think an EAA member, you get a 10% discount on the testing fee. So be sure to mention that and get that scheduled. The test you're going to be taking is private pilot airplane. There's a lot of private pilot tests, rotorcraft, airship, that sort of stuff. So make sure private pilot airplane is the one you're signed up for with that. John G, what price should we expect to pay for our written test? Understand that each testing center is different. I've seen as low as $70. I've seen as high as $150. It's certainly not as expensive as a Checkride, but it's not cheap. I feel like when I did it, it was $50. Now I'm really starting to age myself here. I can basically grow a beard now, so I'm getting pretty old, guys, I want to say it was like $50 back then. For my ATP, my airline transport pilot written test, I want to say I paid like $100-something for it. And that's kind of the going rate, somewhere in that realm there. James B said, believe it or not, I'm having trouble keeping category and class of airmen and aircraft straight. Do you have a mnemonic or some memory trick for that? So James B, funny you mentioned that. I talked about those weekly workshop webinars I do with the gold members every Monday night. I literally did an entire webinar about category and class. So let me give you the 60-second rundown of it, James B. And then when you become a gold member, I'll refer you to that webinar so you can find it. Category and class. My category is airplane. My class is single engine land. My category is airplane. My class is multi-engine land. Category and class. Category, airplane, rotorcraft, airship, glider, all that stuff like we talked about, the right-of-way rules. And then class takes it a step further. Single engine land, single engine sea, multi-engine land, multi-engine sea. You understand that? Category and class. The category and class that you're going for, James B, is airplane, single engine land. Airplane is the category, single engine land is the class. Hopefully that, maybe you just had a light bulb moment there, go off there for you. Michael said, can you talk about flight envelope? I certainly can. I could certainly talk about it for hours, Mike. Is there a specific question? I'll kind of give you a basic rundown of it here for you. So flight envelope has all to do with aircraft CG and center of gravity. There's categories, like a normal category, a utility category. For example, in the utility category, I can be in there to practice my spins. Aerobatic pilots have to be in their aerobatic or utility category to do what they do. It's all about weight. It's all about load factor and G loading with that. I want to operate in the normal category, for my basic stuff. And that's why it's so important, especially when I was a Cessna 150 flyer on a regular basis, that I couldn't always put 2 people in it and full fuel. At one point, I was 200 pounds. I'm a twig now. I'm down to 180. But at one point, I was 200 pounds, and I couldn't take another 200-pound guy with me in full fuel. I was outside of my flight envelope. When you operate outside of your flight envelope, Michael, you're a test pilot. If you were to stall that airplane, you might enter a spin that is unrecoverable, such as a flat spin, and you're really in a pickle. We always operate in our flight envelope. In most aircraft, you have to work pretty hard to get outside the envelope. But just something to consider. If you want me to say something more specific, Michael, I'm happy to. Brian H., you're awesome, Jason. We're lucky to have you sharing so much great info. Thanks for the webinar. Have a wonderful night. Well, Brian, you have a wonderful night as well. Thank you so much. Seer Ash, does the Checkride guarantee carry over to Canada? I am going to say no on that one. We have a ton of international students. And what I usually do is work specially with those international students because regs are going to change, airspace is going to change. However, the process of becoming a pilot and the raw skill of flying doesn't change. Now, yes, sir, if you are doing an FAA certificate in Canada, absolutely. But if you're doing CAA, it's just a little bit different. Now, I have no doubt in my mind you're going to pass, but I do have to read the fine print sometimes with that sort of stuff. So just being honest with you, my friend, with that. Excuse me. Let's see. Ralph said, I soloed many years ago with 10 hours dual. After that, I had a five hours solo, just short of cross country, ran out of money, started a family, etc. Absolutely. That is the life story sometimes. And ceased my training. I do not have my logbook, but I do have a 3rd class certificate with a solo endorsement. Without the actual logbook, will any of those 15 hours count towards my official hours? My thinking is that if I get the solo endorsement, I have 10 hours of training that at least would count. So Ralph, absolutely. If you could find the logbook or track down that CFI or receipts of the flight, you certainly can log it. But Ralph, without that, unfortunately, you've got the skill and the experience, but you don't have the proof of it. And I'd be willing to bet, Ralph, it's been, you say many years ago. I don't know how you define many years ago, but I'd be willing to bet it's kind of like starting over anyways. You wouldn't be on a webinar like this, if you weren't. It's kind of like starting over. Yes, you've got some great experience. It all may or may not be in the logbook, but yeah, it's kind of a dilemma. Without being able to prove it, you're kind of in a pickle. But at the same time, it's almost like a fresh start. I know you're hoping to meet some more hour requirements and everything else, 'cause, to make it money well spent many years ago. But if we can't prove it or can't track down that CFI, that's going to be difficult to do here. Let's see. Aaron B. Jason, after my initial certificate and first time renewal, are there any more tests or check rides I'll have to take? And yes, a good pilot is always learning. Well, thank you for that, Aaron. You're right. A good pilot is always learning. So after you pass your check ride, my friend, all you're going to have to do is keep up with your biannual flight review every 24 calendar months. And it's not like a check ride. It's hopefully it's flying with your buddy who's a CFI or something like that. It's certainly not as intimidating as a check ride. And if you're truly staying proficient, it's a non-event. Now, you do have to keep your FAA currency, your 3 takeoffs and landings within 90 days for the carriage of passengers, and your flight review. And understand, Aaron, you said a good pilot is always learning, and I love that. So you understand that there's such a difference between currency and proficiency. Currency is just meeting my 90-day requirement of 3 takeoffs and landings or doing my BFR. Proficiency is exceeding that and really using my pilot certificate. Let's see. David E. On the question of E6B calculators, you can use on written, but do you need to know both for check ride? So, David, yes and no. So, if you bring a manual E6B to the check ride, they're going to expect you to know how to use it. However, if you bring just an electronic one, I've seen this happen before, David. You bring just an electronic E6B and the examiner grabs it and says, sorry, David, your battery's just died. What are you going to do now? You got to have a backup. So yes, bring both, know how to use both. The same is true of iPads, guys. iPads have taken over the cockpit. But I've seen examiners reach over, if you're using that as your sole means of navigation and flight planning, and go, sorry, bud, your battery just died in your iPad, hand it over. Now let's see you fly this airplane without an iPad. So don't rely too heavily on technology is my point with that, okay? Don't rely too heavily on technology. Let's see here. Stephen D said, are there still 60 questions with the ACS test? Yes. So private pilot airplane, although it switched to the ACS, is still 60 questions. Luke, hey, Luke, I have the option to train in a 172 or 150. I'm obviously trying to save as much money as possible. Can I train the 150 thing and check out the 172 once I have my PPL? Absolutely, Luke. We talked about this a little bit last night. Whether you get your pilot certificate in a Cessna 150 or you get in a Cirrus SR20, it doesn't matter. You get the same certificate that says category and class. Bring that back for you, James. Airplane, single engine land. It's going to say, Luke, airplane, single engine land, private pilot. That's what it's going to say. So absolutely, if you got a Cessna 150 budget and you can fit in a Cessna 150, by all means, earn your certificate in a Cessna 150. It's a beautiful airplane. And then upgrade to the 172 when it's time to start renting and make that transition. It'll be a fun reward for you as well. Absolutely. Kirk S. Hey, Kirk, should you complete ground school before starting prep for the written test? So, Kirk, most ground schools, and ours in particular, are going to prep you for that written test. So it's kind of like we talked about. Our ground school preps you for the written test, it preps you for the check ride, and it preps you to be a safe real-world pilot. But through that, absolutely, you're going to be prepping for the written test in there. So absolutely. And Stephen, yes, the time limit's still the same with that. Let's see. Paulo, yep, written test is all multiple choice. Cool. Yeah, Tony, thank you for that. CATS is computer assisted testing service. CATS. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Keith S. said, I own my own plane and I have a POH but no owner's manual. I guess that's considered the POH. So yeah, Keith, I would ask your mechanic about that one. So a POH is a pilot's operating handbook. Trust me, it looks exactly like the owner's manual. or operator's handbook, whatever you want to call it. Except a POH, I can go buy on eBay or from, Aircraft Spruce or Pilot Mall. I can't just go buy an owner's manual. That comes from Cessna or from Piper. So look very carefully. The one that you keep in your airplane, Keith, look at what it actually says on it. So watch for that. Michael, I'm assuming you're talking about the written test or the check, right? It really doesn't matter. He said, if I took the test in 1969 and failed it, would they have a record of that? Actually, no. Especially in 1969 because they didn't do the documentation. But even today, if you fail a check ride, it stays on your record for 2 years, then it falls off. Then you are the only one who knows you ever failed a check ride, and whoever you tell. So don't worry about that, Michael. They would have no record of that. Let's see. Richard, great point. He said PSI is the new name of laser grade. Apparently they changed names. Good to know, Richard. Appreciate that. Great. Aaron B said, second question, is it possible for a student to remember all 750 FAA written test questions? Well, I don't know, your IQ level, Aaron. I'm sure it's awfully bright. You're hanging out on this webinar, so it's got to be. But again, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. You used words like memorize. We're not out to memorize, my friend. We're out to learn the real world concepts and then be able to apply them to the test. If I teach you right-of-way rules, you're good for 15 questions. If I teach you how to read METARs, TAFs, PIREPs, area forecast, winds aloft, kid you not, you're good for 70 questions. Learn the big picture stuff because the big picture stuff is what's going to be on the check ride. The big picture stuff is what's going to be out there in the real world, and then apply it back to the FAA written test. Cool. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Yasir. I appreciate that. David asks, are you going to have a webinar discussing flight planning form and its requirements? David, probably not a public webinar like this. I do it all the time with our online ground school members, as well as I have several videos on filling out a flight plan, planning an actual cross country and their requirements, choosing routes. We have an entire module about that inside our online ground school. It's module 14 with that. So that is cool there. Let's see, just try again, guys, I'm getting hit with a ton of questions. So if I haven't got to you, don't feel bad. I'm just kind of going down the list here. Sean asks, is there a promo code during this webinar series? We just sign up normally. I'm not doing a promo code just because we're doing the 8-book bonus is really kind of your promo code. I mean, if you tried to buy, Sean, all 8 of those books, I want to say it'd be like $220 if you tried to add all those books to your shopping cart right now. So you're saving $220 right off the bat just with that. It's like getting the first month, free plus some, just in that kind of value with that. John G, I have a friend who's flying a Piper 140, Cherokee 140, great. He's 250 pounds. His typical passenger is also 250 pounds. He usually has to put 100 pounds in the rear baggage compartment to stay in the CG envelope with full fuel. Yeah, no doubt. When you put that much weight forward, you seriously have to balance it out a little bit. I don't deal with this so much. I'm going to give you an example here. A good friend of mine driving, and a lot of people do this, they put the sandbags in the back of their car, for a little bit more traction, for that center of gravity issue with all that weight so far forward so they don't fishtail. It's a very similar thing in an airplane, absolutely. Aaron K, are the written test questions that require using E6B, such as time and route calculations? Yeah, Aaron. So they will be conversion type questions, Celsius to Fahrenheit. They will be time and route, ground speed, wind correction angles, distance flown, plotting and navigation type questions. Absolutely, Aaron K. All of the above here. John G said, my flight school requires an iPad. However, I'm a paper king. Are there any methods that you use to become more proficient without losing my paper knowledge? So, John, I do both. I find it interesting your flight school is iPad only or requires an iPad. I certainly believe it's going that way, no doubt. But I have a backup to everything. So yes, I have my paper charts and all, or my iPad and everything else, but I also carry paper charts with me as well. And I keep them in my flight bag. I'm lucky enough to be an aircraft owner, so most of the times they just stay in the airplane. But John, do what works best for you. Don't feel like you have to adapt to anything, my friend. Do what works best for you. Let's see here. Bubba asks, Jason, can you offer any easy to remember mental math formulas for suggesting, like weight shift, that sort of stuff, questions on the written? Bubba, I can't, I don't have any of those out in front of me. I do talk about it certainly in the FAA written test prep boot camp for my gold members. I talk about it in there. I don't have it out in front of me, and I don't want to give you the wrong answer with that. But yes, there's certainly the mental mathful stuff to make it a little bit easier for you. And I show kind of an E6B method in there as well. But without having it in front of me, I don't want to give you the wrong answer here. But I can look that up if you'll be on tomorrow's webinar. I'll try to remember to look that up here for you. Just grabbing a sip of tea. Apologies for the slurping. Are there really only, this is from David E., are there really only a few questions on G1000, but still need to know knowledge on gauges? Absolutely, David. Last I looked at it, there was only 2 or 3 questions related to G1000 flying, unfortunately, and they just call it glass panel. They don't call it G1000. There's a lot of what we call steam gauges, regular round dial gauges questions. The classic altimeter 2 is at what altitude? What kind of turn? How many degrees of bank are we in on this artificial horizon or attitude indicator? So, gosh, they haven't fully embraced it just yet, which is crazy to me. But it is what it is. So that's that. Yeah, Michael, in regards to your written tests, they're not going to have any record of that, so don't worry about that. Luke, do you recommend starting, completing, and taking your written tests before I even start my flight training, or do it all together? Absolutely, my friend. What we chatted about last night, again, Luke, I would highly recommend jump on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and jump on our Facebook page and go watch last night's webinar. I talk a lot about that. Getting a ground school done first. My dream student gets their written tests done, their medical done, and has ground school complete before they even take a flight lesson. You can go do a discovery flight, make sure you like flying, but absolutely get that all done beforehand. James B said he's heard that the E6B whiz wheel, the manual E6B, is not accurate enough for the written exam. Is this true? The only time it's not accurate enough, James, is on the density altitude questions. And I actually show how to do the density altitude questions on a 4-function calculator or on their chart to make your life a little bit easier and get us a little bit more accurate with that, because that's how you're going to be doing it in real life anyways, on a calculator. With that. Yeah, Ralph, absolutely. We want to get to correlate as soon as possible, not just rote memorization. Jay said, thanks again. See you tomorrow night. Got to go to bed. Jay, no big deal. Appreciate you guys hanging around. I know it's late. I'm on the East Coast as well. This is late for me. Normally I'm in bed by now myself. So cool stuff. Guys, any other questions? Anything I missed? Now is your chance to ask them. Again, guys, I appreciate all you guys who are signing up for the online ground school, taking action on this bonus offer. You're in for a treat, I promise you. You're going to get some great chances to interact with myself, this great team here at MzeroA.com. Again, groundschoolacademy.com. This offer ends tomorrow at midnight, where I'm giving away all these books. Sign up, groundschoolacademy.com. Get started. Thank you for all the kind words, Jay, Denton, David, Stephen. Thank you so much. Listen, thanks so much for all you guys do. Thanks so much for just being such a huge blessing to myself. my beautiful wife, Ashley, our daughter, Ella, this great team here at MzeroA.com. If there's anything we can do this week, anything at all to help make you a safer, smarter pilot, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. Guys, enjoy the rest of your night. I'll chat with you guys more tomorrow as we conclude our series talking about my solo and how you can solo sooner. Enjoy the rest of your night. And most importantly, remember that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great night, guys. See ya.